Alright guys, do you own an FK8 Civic Type R and you're looking for a new set of wheels with this new stimulus package? Well, you found the right video. Let's get it started. Let's turn this on.
Now I'll break through to show to you that I'm more good than I am bad. I'll work it out, I'll work it out. And I'll be somewhere that you need me, and I'll be holding my breath, waiting for you to show.
Alright guys, let's jump straight into it. So I'm like the other Civic Type R owners where the 20-inch wheels, they do look good, don't get me wrong, they look good from setup, but the problem is they have a small little tire on there. There's not much protection from potholes. And a lot of guys, there's a big thing on the forums right now, that guys are actually bending their stock OEM rims because they'll hit a pothole and, well, there you go, there's not a whole bunch of protection, it bends the rims. Also, another downside to the stock OEM rims is that they are a little bit on the heavier side, being 20-inch rims. And so I don't know the weight off the top of my head, but I want to say they're around in the 30 pounds per rim. I could be off by a little bit, but so that's one reason why that a lot of guys are going to aftermarket wheels. Now, one downside to going to aftermarket wheels is they don't really have much of a correct offset for the OEM Type R, because Honda, I want to say the stock OEM rims are about a 60 offset. I want to say they're pretty high, and that reduces the torque steer and the whole suspension dynamics. So a lot of guys are afraid to go to aftermarket wheels because they're afraid it's going to induce some torque steer. And I will say, from adding this setup that I have currently, it did induce a little bit of torque steer, but I think it's a little bit overhyped for a daily driver, spirited driver. Even on the track, I think you'd run into a little bit, but it's more or less when you're getting on the gas, you can kind of feel it a little bit. I don't necessarily feel it in a straight line, but more or less when I'm going into a corner and then I get on the gas and it kind of pulls to one side. So yeah, so, I mean, you're going to get it a little bit, but to be honest with you, I think the pros outweigh the cons in this situation. So the setup I went with is actually the VOLK ZE40 bronze. I wanted to get bronze wheels for this car just because it looks really good on the black. I wanted a 19-inch rims. I actually was looking at the Titan 7s up front, but I did not they didn't have 19-inch rims in the bronze, so I went ahead and just went with the VOLKs were actually my first choice, but the Titans were a little bit cheaper, so that's why I was considering those. And they are a good set of wheels, forged, and they are light. But the reason I went with the ZE40s is the setup that I went with, they're actually 19-inch rims by 10-inch, and they're so 10-inch rims plus 41 offset. So they're pretty wide wheels. And the reason I went with that is because Evasive Motorsports was actually having a really good sell on them at the time, because the actual setup I wanted was 19 by 9.5 plus 45 offset. So I figured that would minimize the offset changes from the suspension geometry from factory. It would still throw it off a little bit, but not to that big of a deal. And they still had the concave face, which is kind of what I was looking for. But the reason I went with this setup is because Evasive was running a really good sell, and I did there's like a few calculators you can use online that I used, and it took it off by a little bit, but I was still afraid I was going to rub a little bit, to be honest with you, up front. So I went ahead and tried to find the skinniest tire I could find, because from tires from manufacturer to manufacturer, regardless, even if they're the exact same size, they can be a little bit different on how wide they are. So I went with the Michelin PS4S, which is a very good tire, very good all-around tire. It's good for daily driving, and it's good for spirited events, and maybe even a little bit of track use as well. But the reason I went with that is because, one, this is my daily driver. I do take it on spirited driving events, but also I need to get quite a bit of mileage out of it. And Michelin actually gives you a 40,000 mile warranty on this, so I figured that it would be a pretty good tire to go with. They are a little bit pricey up front, but you get what you pay for the most part. But the tire size I went with was a 255, 35, 19. And that gave me a little bit of a thicker tire because I am going downsizing from a 20 to a 19. And so that gave me a little bit more protection that way as well too, and that should soften up the ride a little bit. Don't get me wrong, Honda did a really good job even putting it in comfort mode with the 20s. It's pretty crazy how good of a job the suspension kind of takes up. But so that's kind of the setup that I'm running right now currently. And I will say, going to a 35 from a 30, it actually does make a big difference on the ride quality. riding in sport mode now is it's really comparable to actually running in like the comfort mode with the stock OEM 20-inch rims and OEM tires. So there's a really good, I mean, for an overall daily driving, going down to a 19 or even an 18, and going with the 35 wall, it actually will, I mean, it's going to increase your ride quality. So that's one good benefit of going with it. But all right, guys, let me talk about my setup that I'm kind of running on the wheel setup. So like I was telling you before, I was really afraid that it was going to rub a little bit. And sorry about that phone. But so I was afraid that it was going to rub at first, but then I installed it even without the tires, and I put them up there, and I was thinking, oh, this is almost pretty close in line. And I thought, well, maybe I could get away with just driving around town and stuff like that, but spirited driving is definitely going to rub. Well, I mounted the tires on it, and the 255 is a little bit stretched on a 10-inch rim, so I knew that they were going to be stretched a little bit, and I was hoping that would give me a little bit of clearance. So I mounted the tires to the rims, and I drove it around town, and everything felt great. There's no rubbing issues, and it's really flush. Like, I'll show you all some videos up front. It is a very flush setup, and I think it looks really good. I'm actually just running stock springs and suspension, so I mean, it could be lowered and maybe look a little bit better, but this is my daily driver. I'm not super concerned about lowering the car. It looks good as it is, to be honest with you. And so you're going to be flush with this setup. And actually, I haven't rubbed at all. I actually was really afraid because I took it out to Arkansas, to the Boston Mountains, and did a driving event that we typically do with the S2000s. But I wanted to try the Type R this time around. So I took the Type R, and I went around corners very spiritedly. I mean, I thought I was going to rub a few times, but I had never rubbed once, and I've actually put about 10,000 miles on this wheel and tire setup, and I've had no issues so far. No rubbing issues, just, I mean, it's a good-looking setup, it has really good ride quality, and if you're looking into a set and you're afraid, I would say that a 19 by 10 plus 41 offset is actually, I don't think you can get a better flush setup for just stock suspension. Now, if I was lowered, I might rub a little bit, so keep that in mind if you are lowered, guys. But with this setup, and also depending on what tire setup you go with, you might run into rubbing issues. But at 255, 35, 19 on the setup I have currently, it's perfect. So, guys, I'm going to not keep y'all too long, but if you're looking for tires right now, especially during this social distancing, aka Build 2020 season, you might as well, I mean, look in to see what they have. I know there's comparable offsets. Wheels, I think 19 by 9.5 plus 39, I think is a popular setup. Or maybe it's 18 plus 9.5, or no, wait. 18 by 9.5 plus 39 is a very similar offset to this. And I see guys running concave face T37s and that as well, too. So keep that in mind, guys, if you're looking for a similar setup. Go ahead and like the video, subscribe, and we have a little bit more videos coming out pretty soon. So it's good to see y'all guys again. I've had these wheels for a while. I just haven't updated y'all on it. So if you have any questions, comment below, and we'll see y'all guys in the next one.